It's Wednesday. Welcome
Hello.
to Let's Shred, everyone. I have my guest here, Ally Carty, which she had to remind herself of how old she is. We were
Yes,
just
and there's
discussing
video
it.
evidence of it.
Yeah. And the reason why I bring up her age is because we are discussing Gen Z. And I think a lot of us kind of get confused sometimes is like, the demographics, the millennials and the Gen Z. So you are 24. Now, what technically Gen Z?
So this took some Googling for me too, just because I
Okay.
feel like a lot of conferences are just like Gen Z or millennials. So I think it's 18 to 25 is what I've decided is Gen Z. I've decided
Okay.
that's what the internet told me as well. So that's what I'm going to go with. And then 25 plus is millennials.
Okay.
Not plus.
So Ally and I met recently in person, which is great. I love when I actually get to
Yes.
meet my guests in real life. We met at the IMB conference here in San Diego. And I have to admit, I'm kind of obsessed with your demographic. I'm obsessed with Gen Z. And I think a lot has to do with the fact that I have two Gen Zers, as kids. My son's going to be 22 next week. And then my daughter is 18, almost 19. And then I realized too that when I experienced like my depression and just kind of like the darkest time of my life, I was in that demographic. I was 20, 21 years old. So I feel like I like really can relate to all of you. So when I met you, like I automatically was like, I want to mentor you. Like I want to help you.
Yeah, no, and your energy is just like obviously like bright, fun, happy, and you were so great to me at the conference. And I think there's been so many strong leaders in this industry that I've really been excited to see new faces and Gen Z. But you specifically have been like so excited to just touch base with me after the conference and having Gen Z children. It's been interesting to just have conversations about it. And I've watched your videos. You've talked to a couple people in that age group, and I'm really excited to kind of delve more into it today.
Yeah. Hey, Dusty. So this is what's really neat about this show too, Ally, is that Dusty's not in the industry. Like what's great is that I like a lot of people that engage in the show have nothing to do with the mortgage industry, but they find that, there's a lot of insight that they get from this show. And I think especially today with, Gen Z, like I mentioned in the post that a lot of people are trying to figure out how to market to you, how to really relate to your age group. And like I feel like I can, but I know that a lot of people can't. So I think this is really good for you to kind of give us some of the behind the scenes.
No, 100%. You're so right. And I think that's what sparked my new initiative around just bringing a light to my generation and the opportunities that are there in the mortgage industry. Like you said, I go to these conferences. I've been so fortunate. I don't even know what number I'm on. I think it's like 9 or 10, but a common theme of sessions that I've sat through, no matter which conference it was, is marketing to Gen Z, reaching that next generation of home buyers. And as I look around the room, there'll be big discussions, and these industry leaders who are so experienced, have such a wealth of knowledge. They're so speculative about what my generation is thinking. And what better firsthand than an actual Gen Z person to talk about the topic? And it's just funny because like you said, your kids are Gen Zs. Yeah. My mom and people in the industry, everyone goes to these conferences and they're like, oh, well, I know XYZ and Gen Z. Let me pick their brain. And it's like, I actually am firsthand and I agree with this, that. Like, you guys are on the right track. And it's just trying to bring light and a little bit less speculation to the topic is my goal, and where I feel like I can add value to those types of discussions.
Wow. Well, what I think is really interesting is that you actually have parents that are in the industry. So you grew up in this environment, yet you are the quintessential like person that has yet to buy
I know. It's so funny. So a little backstory behind me. I grew up in Orlando, Florida. Both of my parents are in the mortgage industry. I've heard the acronyms, all the market updates at the dinner table. Very full circle for me. I swore I would never go into the industry because I was like, oh, it's so cyclical. No, never. And sure enough, 24, I'm jumping into it and I'm happy to be here. But it's funny, like you said, like here I am preaching the value of homeownership, but I think my generation is at this stage where we just got out of COVID and we had this space made for us at home to live rent free. And that's an interesting thing that I don't know everyone thinks about is like my group of friends, we're all 24. We went to Florida State. When the pandemic hit, we all just kind of ran home because like emergency, you want to be with your family. So they make space. And I think something our industry is going to deal with is getting those people to get out of their comfort zone, agree to set aside money for an independent living situation. Mm-hmm. And right now I'm kind of in the process. I live in Nashville. My parents are still in Florida, but I'm trying to develop an independent housing situation, but I want to make sure I'm in the right space. Yeah. And so I was in Raleigh for 6 months. I've been in Nashville for 6 months, and I could see myself going back to Florida eventually, but it's just trying to figure out where I want to live. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, yeah, because it's the commitment part, right? Of like,
it's the commitment, and it's like wherever I'm at long term.
Yeah. And then, now that I'm thinking about it and you're saying all of that about the comforts of, being in the home where, it's rent free and so forth, like I'm actually experiencing that myself now. I mean, I'm living with my mom.
Yes, you told me about that.
Yeah, I sold my condo, and I feel like your generation, wants to like experience and live life. And the only way to really do that is to be able to have funds to do that, like to travel, right, to do, just do different experiences. And I'm finding myself feeling the same way of like, I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to like, go to a Chargers game against the Titans last minute, and
right,
get great seats
and not feel guilty for paying. Like you don't want to feel guilty. Like if I go out of town here in Nashville, even I'm paying rent, but it's like, I don't want to feel guilty that I'm leaving the space that I'm paying for. And that's one thing that I did want to touch upon. Our generation is so frugal. Like we understand how important, like a lot of people do not agree. And maybe you have a different opinion having kids who are in Gen Z, but my friend group.
My daughter's frugal, not my son.
And I just think that we all understand, my parents might say different, but the value of $1, and we know when to save and like, oh, this makes sense to save. I'm going to live at home for as long as I can because that's an extra right now, like in the market right now, it's like $2,000 you're saving a month. Yeah. And something that as I've been doing research, having a higher education is so much more common with my generation that having a salary that reflects that is really hard. I think a lot of people have, if you go to college, you're going to expect to make this amount of money so you can pay off your student loans. But I don't think that amount of money is as reflective of what people are leaving college with those type of loans as. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No, and maybe that's sense. So I think just based on the fact that the starting salary of a college graduate is lower, and I've seen that in data that I've been researching, my friends are like, I'm not making enough money to go buy a house. I'm barely making it as is with rent. I don't know how I'm going to start saving for my down payment. And I don't even know where to start, but also I'm too prideful to even start it. And those are just the conversations I'm hearing, and people are vulnerable and talking with me as a friend. But I'm like, there has to be a way to bridge that embarrassment of approaching the homeownership process and the education behind it. Yeah. And I've been fortunate to grow up in a household with 2 parents that are great resources. And I understand I am paying someone else's mortgage right now. And when this lease is up, I will be saving. And I understand. But I'm hoping to bring value to the industry. And there's people that don't understand it and don't have amazing parents that are going to help them. How do you build a relationship with them and help them understand the money that's being spent on rent?
Yeah, I think you totally said it, where it's the education part of it. I feel like once again, and I've said this over and over again, and for whatever reason, it still hasn't really resonated enough. I feel in this industry that we're not educating the consumer enough. I mean, and I know that Kristen Meserly, she does the next gen home ownership report, and in there, it's that the data showed that your generation feels like they don't understand the process.
It's overwhelming. Like, and it's kind of just people in my life. So I've been telling this story because if you ask anyone in my friend group here in Nashville, they will say I'm a crazy mortgage girl. Like, I'm out at a bar and I'm like, hey, tell me about home ownership. Like, what do you think? Do you rent? Do you buy? Like, I'm just super passionate about it. And it's something that people are open to discussing with me, but also you just see, like, I was at a bar on Saturday and I was talking to this guy and he was like, I know I'm spending a lot of money on rent, but like, I don't even know where I want to live. I don't know where to start. And I'm like, you're spending $2,000 a month when that could be building wealth in a home while you're thinking about it. You know, I'm trying to just figure out how the best way it is to generate new business through my generation for people that are spending so much in rent. And I don't even remember. Oh, so basically I was talking to one of my friends and I was over at her apartment and her boyfriend is moving in very soon. And he calls her frantically and he's like, I got a realtor. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, we're entering that life stage where we're going to want to buy a home. And I didn't know where to start. So I just started Googling things. And I'm like, this is the perfect person to speak to because he's in the stage where he wants to make that adjustment and the realization that I need to start saving. But here he is so stressed. He just has been Googling things, found a robot realtor who's messaged him. And that's where he started his process. How can I bridge the gap so that our industry can get to him before he goes to Google? And I think you and I spoke about this, the power of social media and just being a resource on that popular page of home ownership, mortgages, you know, when they're going to look for homes in Nashville, how do loan officers come top of mind and the education behind buying a home? Does that make sense?
Oh, no, absolutely. And, you know, I've had these conversations with my kids too, you know, being that I'm in the industry and I ask them questions as well. And, you know, it's also that trust factor. It's intimidating and intimidation. I feel like it's very intimidating, even though I'm in it. Like I even was looking at a condo recently, like to buy maybe like as investment. And I myself was like really intimidated and overwhelmed by the process. And here I'm in it, like, and I understand it. So I can only imagine for those of you that like don't know what's going on, that like you're just kind of like, I don't even know where to start. I don't know.
I'm going to avoid it.
I don't know who to trust. Like, and so you just don't do it. And that's like you said, like we have to figure out a way to bridge that gap and a way to really be able to connect to your demographic so they understand like how they can build wealth through there and how it is a great investment and all of those things. But I think it's just having these conversations. It's having someone like yourself. Oh my gosh, my Boo Bear just showed up. Hey, Reggie. He's in Canada. He's not in the industry either. We might haven't met in real life, but we're, you know, like internet boyfriend, girlfriend wannabe.
Love that for you. Yes.
But the thing is that like, what I love about you, Ally, is that when you and I spoke at the conference, you know, you were telling me, you showed me your Instagram and you have a huge following, 43,000 people. And you're like, I want to figure out a way to have it translate over to LinkedIn, how I can help educate, how I can use the fact that I do have a large following, like what can I do to help? And, you know, I suggested you get on LinkedIn and just start doing videos, and you did it. Cause you know how many people like I will have these conversations with, and I will like put all this time and energy and effort into like helping them. And then they don't do anything. They just
100%. But also like, I don't think without our conversation, I would have done that just because it's really scary to create video content on a personal level. And so doing it on a professional level was really intimidating. I already look really young at these conferences. So if I don't know what I'm talking about and I'm not actually bringing value, I didn't want to be discouraged. And so without your kind of push to do it, I probably wouldn't have. So one, thank you. But two, I think that's also something that I can relate to from like a loan officer's perspective. So there's so many loan officers out there who I have spoken with and they're like, hey, I love your videos. Do you want to come do them for me? And I'm like, the whole point of, you know, and it's like, it's so scary for people to want to look at themselves on camera and you're a queen at it. And
It
without
took a
talking
while
with
though. It didn't happen overnight. Like it took a while. Like I was still in the beginning, like super awkward and everything. So I tell people all the time, like it wasn't easy at first for me either.
But it's also a great, like, I've started doing these TikToks, posting them on LinkedIn so people can see, like, TikTok's really fun and it's short and it's like you can mess up, delete it, you can fix it. And it's also a great resource for loan officers to send to their individual prospective home buyers. It's like, hey, I have this video saved. I'm going to put it on LinkedIn. Let me send it to so and so, and hopefully build trust with them with the eye contact and just the ability to create a consultative approach virtually, So
Yeah.
I think when you came to me and I was like, oh, I'm scared. Like, I don't want people to make fun of me for doing this. I'm already lucky to be here. I was talking to you and I was like, I really think that this would provide value. What do you think? And you were like, do it. So thank you.
Yeah,
And
well, look at Jen already. And Jen, she's a perfect example that she loved your
thank you,
insightful
Miss
videos that put out,
Peachman.
Allie. Keep it coming. They're super impactful. Love it. Like, I don't think you realize like how needed you are in this industry right now. The fact that you are so vocal and you're willing to share and be so transparent about it. Like this is a huge thing. And so like not to, put any pressure on you, but I feel like you're
No,
the only one that's really doing that right now. Like maybe there's other people and I don't know about it. If you're out there, let me know.
I
But
mean, that's kind of so I talked to some of these finfluencers, the people on LinkedIn that I really admire. And I've been like, hey, like, what do you think? Would you not only support me in this, but do you think it would provide value? Because that's my biggest thing. I am probably the least experienced person in the room when it comes to mortgages. I'm 24. I'm very new to the business, but where can I provide value that other people may not be able to? That's what I'm going to bring to the table. And so going to these conferences, people are like, what's Gen Z thinking? I'm like, I can go to my Galentine's dinner last Tuesday with 15 girls and just see what they're thinking.
Yeah.
I can go to Centennial Park and talk to 5 random strangers and hopefully get them to agree to be on my. They were like, I don't want to be all over TikTok. I'm not wearing makeup. And I'm like, I'm like, it's okay. Like, I won't tag you. And like, it's going on LinkedIn. Like, it's just really helping bridge the gap. And I'm excited about it. I think it's something
so you
that.
are doing that. You are asking actual questions like out and about and recording.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you saw my video from last week, but I went out to Centennial Park and I had a friend go with me and just create videos of me like talking to people in person and saying, hey, what's your perspective on home ownership? And they were super vulnerable with me. And they were like, honestly, and you could tell, like, I talked to 32-year-olds who are millennials, so they're not my age group, but they were thinking about it and it was still a trust thing for them. They were like, well, the market, well, this, I use Zillow to see what the rent versus the mortgage would be. But the 22-year-olds were like, not for me, not for me. And I'm just like, why not? Like, do you understand? I didn't get the chance. Like, I wasn't going to reprimand them for them being on video with me, but I was like, people don't understand how much money, if you could just break down. And I think someone commented on the video last week, just if you could sit down with them and show them how much money they're going to save by investing in a home versus paying an apartment rent, they're going to be mind blown. And I had a conversation at an airport leaving a conference, and I think it was Dan from Total Expert. I was talking to him and he was like, so why don't you own a home? And I'm like, oh no. And I was like, the people at the park, I was like, that's just not for me right now. I'm just renting. And he's like, well, do you understand, like $2,000 a month could be going to pay a mortgage that you then are going to be building wealth on. And if you decide to move, you're at least paying towards a mortgage versus going to the dirt. Like, he literally used the word going to the dirt, and it spoke to me because I was like, that's $2,000 I will never get back. And it wasn't until sitting at that airport that I was like, holy cow, nobody in my life thinks that way. How can I help not only talk to people about it, but help the industry talk to people about it?
Yeah, I think also the loan officer's role has changed too, where they need to be more of a financial advisor now. You know what I mean? Like, where I think before it was just kind of like, this is how it's done, this is the process, and then like that's it. Like now, I feel like a really good loan officer is one that will sit there and do the numbers and will really explain, like in the long term, how this is beneficial for them. But I feel like for so many years the loan officer was like, that's not my job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do numbers and I sit behind a screen. Yeah.
Yeah. And just collect documentation and just make sure that, we just are able to fund this deal. And I feel like the loan officer, not only do they have to be a financial advisor, but they have to be like a good marketer.
Yeah.
Same thing. That's where it's at. Social media, that's where you guys all hang out. So it's like being able to get in front of their face and gain that trust through the social media, through the videos. And that's why, for me, with my job, I'm essentially kind of like a psychologist, a counselor, a cheerleader, because everybody knows they need to be on video and they, in order to get in front of you guys, but they're so freaked out. So a lot of it is psychological.
Well, and you did that for me. You were like, just try it. And you're like, and I was reading a book on the way to MBA, IMB that also just kind of said, hey, listen, the worst thing that could happen is you look back and say you didn't try. And that spoke to me. And you just further encouraged it. It was like, if I fail, at least I knew I gave it a shot. And I'll come back and figure out another way that I can bring value. But I've been really thankful for everyone, especially you, who's encouraged me to kind of delve into this. And it's funny, I've been sending out these Instagram polls, and I have friends in my life who are like, hey, you do mortgages, like talk to me about what it would look like to buy this home. And I'm like, people want to talk about it. It just takes a trusted person in your life to make the connection. And I think if people can create video content, be vulnerable, I think that's something that you really told me to do. And if the loan officers can be vulnerable on their social media and just be like, man, I had no idea what this meant. But now this is what it means. And this is how I'm going to help you do it. And I just think authenticity goes a really far way with our generation, and just wanting to help, being genuinely curious about them. So I think that's something that you really encouraged me to do. And you are like a psychologist in this realm.
Well, I've done all those like strength tests and,
tests,
and they all the same thing. All the careers, it's always like counselor, psychologists, like, therapists. It's always in there. So I feel like, so it's funny how my job kind of lends to that. But even Michelle, who she was on my show, was it last week? It's always a blur in weeks. I think it was just last week that Michelle was on. Now, Michelle is a perfect example of someone that she was in operations. She got laid off, so she's open to work. And she was like, I need to get out of my comfort zone. And she started doing videos. And she's fantastic on these videos. Like, she's killing it. And she's adding value by sharing her experience. And then, kind of giving advice of like, this is how I'm kind of being able to go through the process right now, being that I'm looking for a job. And this is how I'm able to stay positive. This is what I do every day. And so then last week when she was on the show, it was her first time doing, well, it was her second time doing a live stream, but it was just like, and I feel like the trajectory of maybe her career might shift because she's so good on video and the way that she presents herself. I'm like, forget ops. Like, she's meant to be in front of the camera.
Right.
And I feel the same way with you, Ally. So when I spoke with you, I knew, like, there's just, people have that it factor and you have it.
Thank you.
And so it's like, when someone has that, it's like, it's our duty to get that out of you, because you're helping so many of us. It's not really just about you. It really is about like, how can we get you in front of here so that you in turn can help the industry, can help your generation. Like, I see it always as a bigger picture of like, how can we all collaborate? Like, this is like, we're all in this together. Like, no matter where you're at, what industry, what part of the world, like, we're in it together. So for me, it's like, I'm always looking at the bigger picture. And so,
I'm just thinking about your Israel pen pal, and like, you are very Miss Worldwide.
Israel, like, I mentor a high school student in Israel, and then he and I, the way we're talking about our different cultures, and he's 16, and it's like my daughter said this weekend. She's like, Mom, I know you want to like change the world and you want to change like so many things. She goes, but just do it one person at a time.
Yeah.
She's like,
no, you're phenomenal with that.
And she keeps, so you're like that person, right? So it's like,
I remember just, you took me under your wing that night. You're like, all right, we're going to go, like, and we had so much fun. But I remember my mom is huge. She's in the mortgage industry, but she's like my best friend. And I was like, Mom, I'm at this rock star, and like, she really thinks I should do this LinkedIn thing. And my mom hasn't been on LinkedIn in a while. She's like very, she's not on LinkedIn as much. And I'm like, she's like,
Yeah.
oh, is there like a lot of videos out there? I'm like, I don't think a lot, like from my generation at least. And I'm like,
Yeah,
it's funny, people from college, they'll text me and be like, what are you doing on LinkedIn? And I'm like, I am providing value. I am connecting with those people who I don't get to see every day and just hoping to bring something to the table, because I'm very patriotic too. So I'm like red, white, and blue. I think the fact that we can own a home is such a right to us as American citizens. I don't want my generation to mess up on that opportunity and the ability to have the American dream, you know, the white picket fence, the dog in the front yard. That's something that motivates me to help bring awareness, not just to the people in my life, but also the mortgage industry to bridge the gap. Yeah. And so that's something that fuels me. And I think you just having a conversation about being vulnerable, and worst thing that can happen is you never do it again. I think that's what I would tell to any loan officers that are trying to reach that next gen and tiptoeing in TikTok, Instagram reels. Like, just give it a shot. If it doesn't work, worst case, you tried it.
Yeah. I mean, you have to, it's like trial and error. You got to figure out what works and doesn't. And what I was going to say for you, as far with LinkedIn, I'm sure you're connecting to people that you never would have imagined that you were going to connect with. Like, the caliber of people on LinkedIn is just like, it's so hard to explain until you're like in it. And so someone for your age, you know, like, you're getting an opportunity to really connect with people that are experienced, that really, you know, in different industries. And so for you, like, I feel like that's your generation too needs to understand the value of that as well, of, you know, wanting to communicate with our generation and wanting to get insight from us. Like, it's vice versa, right? It's like a give and take. Like, let me learn from you, and then I want you to learn from me. And so I feel like there's a lot of value in that as well for you to be able to create that community.
Some industry leaders have brought to my mind, like, and I sat through how to market or generate new business through Next Generation at MBA IMB, and that's what really sparked this. It was a really good just topic on video content, and just the average age of loan officers is in their mid 40s, which, yes, I realize is lower than previous numbers, but how do I get people in my life to realize what an amazing industry the mortgage industry is? And if I cannot, I've had people be like, what do you do for work? You are always all over the place. And I'm like, I have a very niche job in the mortgage industry, but it's a really fun industry and it can be really lucrative. Like, there's a lot of opportunities to build a business and have a freedom as a salesperson. And I graduated with a sales degree from Florida State, born and bred, knew I wanted to do sales. I didn't really know what industry, where I was going to go, tried not to do mortgage. But if mortgage, I want to take the time to encourage industry leaders to be present at universities, be present in places where you can build relationships with Gen Z, because not only will that bring a notion that home ownership is a capability, but it'll hopefully lower that average loan officer age, so that more conversations are sparked around, like, hey, what do you do for work? Oh, I'm a loan officer. Oh, I help people get into their first homes, or I help people to finance the American dream. Like, there's just so many ways that our industry can utilize programs at universities to lower that loan officer age gap.
Yeah. No, I agree. And you're going to help, and then you're going to find people that are going to, want to help your cause too. Right.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you're starting a little bit of a movement.
Trying
to start somewhere. No, you're trying. And I see it happening, honestly. Like, it's one of those things where, once again, like, already you have been able to connect with some really cool people in this industry. And I know everybody wants to help. And, that's what's important, is that we're all wanting to help each other and support. And, I think before in the industry too, is kind of, people were kind of just doing their own thing. And I feel like now it's like we're coming together more and more, especially with all the layoffs and what's happening. Like, everybody wants to help each other out.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a shift in the industry with that as well, which is, I think, a really beautiful thing to see, to be honest.
I agree. I think it's been really cool. And I appreciate every executive or experienced person who has reached out to me and been encouraging, especially you, Raquel. Like, you've been a great resource for me. And I'm excited to stay besties in the industry and learn from you and pick your brain about certain things.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we're already at the 30-minute mark. And Michelle, great to see younger people help this
Thanks,
industry
Michelle.
evolve. Absolutely. See, so this is great. So hopefully this encourages you to keep going and keep, doing your thing. And I'm excited just to see like where it takes you and how it evolves. Like this is
Well,
just,
thank
for
you.
me, it's like a proud moment.
Yeah, it's only been like 4 weeks since I saw you, and I feel like I've had so much like initiative around it
I
since
know.
then.
I
So
feel like you've done so much. Like, good for you. Like I said, there's
thank
so many people that
you.
would have like fallen off, but no, you went ahead and like you did it. So I'm like super proud of
Thank
you, and this is
you. Of
awesome. And thank you for being on my show, and thank you for
course.
everyone who hopped on and engaged now. And there's always people that jump in on the replay. But if you want to reach out to Ally, what's the best way for people to reach
Yeah,
out to you?
for sure. I mean, LinkedIn, Ally Carty. I'm wearing a pink shirt in it, but you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Check out my video content. You can reach out to me over email. I work for a company called Active Comply. We do social media monitoring for loan officers. At acarty@activecomply.com. But yeah, LinkedIn's probably the best way to reach me right now.
Perfect. And Dal went ahead and put your LinkedIn profile in the chat too. So
Awesome.
awesome. All right. Well, thanks again. I hope you have a wonderful day and wonderful week, everyone. And we'll see you next week on Women That Trend.